Hello, my Patreon members! This is such an awesome session. So this session is really about the HCG protocol. So I know not everybody in here has done it, wants to do it, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. This client has done the HCG protocol and had an incredible amount of physical weight loss success. Got down to weight that she never thought was possible. And with that weight loss pride came weight gain shame. And she really did become very prideful. Preached the protocol, preached low carb, removed gluten, preached gluten-free, preached clean eating and healthy, all of that stuff. She became one of the zealots sitting in the front pews. All the while, as she's preaching sugar-free, gluten-free, low carb, she's having major issues binging. Not telling anybody. And ultimately, as she continued to binge, she also continued to regain weight, which put even more pressure on her to restrict the food she's binging. And as you all, to some degree, have experienced this, you can imagine that she gained more and more and more weight, and the pressure to restrict got bigger and bigger, and her issues with food got bigger and bigger as well. So she came to me a year ago. So this client and I have been working together consistently for over a year. And we have worked through the layers of the codependent issues, not just with body image and self-image, but with her health image as well. And we've also worked with, what you're going to hear in this session is that we've also worked with the issues and image she had with food and how she related to food. Clearly, because she always had a diet in her back pocket to remove the consequences if she gained weight. At least the illusion is that it will make her fix her weight gain. Anyways, so we discussed this. The consequences of that dieting and how it enables this ability for us to actually use food excessively, because we can always fix it with a diet, fix the damages. So especially in the last, I would say 6 months of work that her and I have done together, because she did a round, I think about 6 months ago, thinking that she was ready for it. I would agree, but knowing that, if she does this, if she holds on to the body image, that stuff's going to come back. And she did. She talks about it in this session. Anyway, so you're going to see that we've talked, not only have we worked on, we've kind of completed our work around body image, which was essential because that's the main issue, but now we had to really go into the consequences of the dieting, which is this overemphasized need for food. And how that need for food and the ability for her to use food enabled her to keep this fantasy idea of what life was. And so as life didn't really become the fantasy, she could use food to feel compensated, to feel like, because she's being, she's not getting the fantasy life she was always expecting or thought that she could make up the difference and reward herself with food. And so the actual work that her and I have been doing wasn't so much with the body image, but it was really focused on life expectations and how her relationship with food enabled a really crummy expectation of perfectionism. So anyway, this just gives you an eye into not just the whole recovery process, but actually where the HCG protocol for me fits into the equation. Because, if it's just about body image, why would you do the protocol? But it's way more than that to me. There is the how you relate to food in there that's been distorted, and that has to be undistorted. And you don't have to do the protocol to get that undistortion. But for those of you who have a body that can handle the HCG, putting yourself in that position is like putting yourself under a microscope. How you think, how you process life. So anyways, this is an awesome session. I have quite a few clients right now on the HCG protocol, and not everyone is in the same place. So, and I don't want to post this to put pressure on any of you to do the HCG protocol, because to me it's not necessary. And if you aren't where you need to be, it can be an incredible, it can actually make your issues with food worse. So it comes with some risk. So I do want to say that these clients who are on the protocol, I have done the best I can to prepare them to do it if that's what they want. And some of them, like this client, she didn't want to do it anymore. It wasn't even an option. But I presented it to her in a way that she was like, I'm going to do it. So, all right, enjoy. So you and I have been working together for a while. You've, how many rounds of the HCG protocol have you done in total?
Probably 8 or 10.
And you've had,
I don't even know anymore.
And you've had tons of success while on the protocol, lost a substantial amount of weight to the point where you became the thin, righteous health example for us all, right?
Yes, I did.
And that didn't last, which sucked for you because you'd put so much pride in it that you experienced the shame of failure when you couldn't manage your own healthy restrictions, binging in the closet, not wanting people to know that you're healthy, gluten-free, dairy-free, or whatever it was you were following, right? What was your main, like, health, diet, righteous program?
Low carb.
Okay, low carb, righteousness, binging on carbs as you go out and say, look, I don't need carbs, I feel great.
Right.
Anyway. And then as you felt the need to restrict more and more and more, you ended up binging more and more and more, feeling even more shame, gaining the weight back, isolating yourself because you were embarrassed about coming out of the closet as the most amazing, thin example of success, right? Anyways, so we've been working for a year now. You came to me after regaining all of the weight, correct?
Correct.
Did you gain more in the end than you did prior to starting the protocol?
Oh, yes.
So you got bigger after the HCG protocol. Bulimia. I want to say it's not the protocol, it's the bulimic use of it. Plus the extreme zealot restrictions to manage the weight that the protocol lost for you. How that impacted that impulsivity to eat and the shame of the regain. So you ended up being, what was your highest weight?
I don't even know because my highest weight would have been before I started this protocol, and I don't even know what it was.
Do you know what your size was?
Probably an 18 to 20 jeans and XL to 1X top.
Okay. And how tall are you?
5'11".
Okay. So, doesn't really matter, but getting there was not easy. Wouldn't you agree?
No.
And then the work that we've done has not been focused on your food at all, more so your issues with the entitlement, the victim position with life, how your life expectations created this feeling of, constant loss when reality would show up. Anyway, so we had to really work at the underlying issue before we decided, and I actually presented this round to you, and you were like, over it, I'll never do that again. And I had said, well, because you're now on another round of the HCG protocol. However, so the question is, after all this work, after accepting you'll never be thinner, after accepting that if you lose weight, you're going to gain it all back, and letting go of the thinnerness and accepting the body at the fattest it's ever been, the largest it's ever been, right? I present to you this HCG protocol, and not only did you have to separate yourself from body image in terms of fatness and thinness and everything in between, but you've also had to really look at how you related to food dysfunctionally, because you've always relied on a diet to fix your body. And when we got rid of we got rid of dieting to fix the body, and we had to go right into then where that dieting had enabled you to have these issues. Instead of issues, let me use a different word. The dieting gave you an escape from taking responsibility for the way that you used food to compensate yourself for feeling shitty about your life. Whether it's I'm overworked, I'm caretaking for my parents, my husband, and I'm pissed at my husband, or something. You were volunteering at church and felt overworked there, right? I mean, there's all these things that you felt that I deserve to eat, and that relationship with food was only there under a diet enabler.
Absolutely.
So by getting rid of the diet, by having to force you to be accountable, responsible is a better word, don't you agree? To take responsibility for not just the response of poor me, for actually changing the way you perceive the world, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Would you agree that change of perception around what do you expect if you continued to feel victimized? I remember there was a string of about 4 or 5 sessions where that's all we talked about. And that was all you kept on. We'd talk and I'd be like, you're playing the victim. Here we go again. Let's have the same conversation over and over again.
Yeah.
And it clicked for you at some point that I can no longer fantasize. I cannot hold a fantasy of life and then compare reality to that fantasy and judge reality, when reality is going to be what it is, no matter how much you want to fantasize. And no matter how much you actually work to attain the fantasy, that fantasy may not be you're not as controlling of that fantasy as you think. There's all these other dynamics that can come into play, like someone's going to quit their job, that an employee's going to quit. You can't control whether they stay or quit. The weather you cannot control, right? You cannot control. Yeah. In fact, the majority of everything, it's an illusion to think that we can control the outcome of something unless we live in a vacuum, right? Live in that isolation from any influence, correct? So you had to sit there and go, shit, I have to let go of my fantasy of the way I think my family should work, the way that my work should work, the way that my body should work, how a marriage works, how I'm going to be dealing with my grandchildren, right? There was so much that you just had to surrender your control of and go into the humility and modesty of acceptance, right? Diminishing that narcissism.
Yep.
From there, the entitlement and the need to compensate just goes away naturally. So we don't have to work on your victim role, right?
Right.
So that's kind of it in a nutshell that we worked on. And then after that, our sessions were like, this is so easy. This is so great. Holy shit. There was really no movement. And that's why I said, well, let's make it hard for you. We're going to make this complicated now and see how you do. Right?
Yep.
So let's get rid of your food and see if you can create relative abundance with very little. We're going to diminish your food intake to such a small amount that anything might tip you. Anything might feel victim-y, right? So if you've learned to change your perception in an environment, especially with food, being that food is so primal, right? Are you capable of diminishing that primal response to feed based on your ability to change your perception? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to take an actual primal need and diminish it greatly. And then we're going to see if you can take this same position of abundance, right? Position of, I'm good. I can handle this. This isn't a big deal.
Right.
It's like saying, well, in your brain, you have the option of either saying, I can't handle this. This sucks. My life is just sucky right now. This is too hard. I'm being punished, right? Those positions comparatively compared to this isn't a big deal. It's only temporary. I can all have that stuff later, to where you're reducing the inflammation in the brain, even though the amount of food you have is literal deprivation of choice,
right.
deprivation of the ease of just eating what you want, right? Which is where you lived for quite some time, and the ability to have relative abundance, where before recovery, it was always relative deprivation. I'm being deprived relative to this stress, relative to how I hate my body. My body is depriving me, relative to my life, relative to the fact that I have a craving and what I've chosen to eat isn't what I want, relative to I'm bored and need something to do, right? You have this continuous relative deprivation with abundance at your fingertips. So we've kind of flipped this around. Can you create, you had relative deprivation, around all this abundance, creating deprivation out of just that positionality of the victim role in your codependency with the fantasy and life, right?
Yep.
So now we have literal restriction, and you are living in relative abundance. The other thing that this is doing for you, and this is a long answer to why do the protocol. The other thing this is doing for you is handing you what you used to use as a reward under this environment. I'm being deprived. I deserve a reward. I'm sacrificing this food, the pleasure, the ease, and I deserve a reward. So we're handing you what you used to combine dysfunctionally. Dieting and thinnerness used to be married in your mind. You don't diet unless you have a reward of thinness. Why else would you sacrifice? And why else would you tolerate this relative deprivation and the protocol, real deprivation, right?
Right.
So as you're creating relative abundance under this circumstance, what happens to the desire or even link to what's going on physically?
It's just not there.
Right? You had just said to me, I've noticed my stomach, right? I want you to describe it.
Well, when I first started doing injections, it was hard to see the spot where I needed to inject. And then yesterday I noticed, I can see that spot easily now to give myself an injection. Oh, my stomach must be getting smaller. And like, my thought was, yeah, but Michelle, you'll probably gain it back, so it really doesn't matter. And I actually last night ordered some new blouses, and I still ordered XL and 1X blouses.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized that, because I have no expectation to, like before when I was on protocol, I would have said, I'm going to order a large because I know I can get down to that, and I'll probably get to a medium.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just, there's no expectations.
Yes.
And it makes it so much easier.
If you were to compare how it felt even with your last round, we were still working together. So it's been a process of basically unraveling the strict and tightness of this dysfunctional codependent relationship that you've had with food, dieting, right? Stress, entitlement, victimization, body image on the other side. You know what I mean? So we've really loosened this up. And how does it feel this round compared to the last round? Because the last round you were like, we thought you were ready for it. Until you went into it, and it was not like this.
It was a shit show.
The last round was?
Yeah. Like, I was hungry all the time, and I always wanted to cheat, And every round I've ever done, I did not cheat. I stayed to protocol. I was successful. I was in control. And the last one, I just felt out of control all the time. And
do you feel that maybe the expectations of recovery might have put pressure on you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Definitely.
That's important too to witness. Like, if you are doing this to prove your recovery, but underneath it all, you're wanting the thinness and hoping that because you're having less food issues that you can keep your thinness. Seems so harmless, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I went into the last one thinking I didn't have expectations, but looking back, I did.
Physical.
They were there.
Yeah, most people believe, once they go through this process and they're going to recover from the eating issues, which they are still just not seeing the big picture yet. They're seeing part of it yet. They think, well, once I do the protocol, then I won't regain the weight. It's going to be so great. So it's still fixating on not gaining the weight, which then sets you up to have that paranoia right at the end of the protocol where you're like, oh my God, now I'm afraid that I'm going to regain the weight. So that basically puts, that body image part of it creates the strictness of the dieting, right? And that strictness of the dieting then positions you to feel victimized in reality because you can't, it's that pendulum swing again. Either I'm losing weight and feeling great, or I'm pissed off that I am not, now your mammalness comes out and I need the food and I'm being restricted from food. And now there's that connection to what I'm a victim and I deserve food. And now it's self-love, even though I'm okay in this moment regaining weight because I have an illusion that I'm going to lose it later. There's that bizarre relationship with food that you've had for decades and relationship with body image. So this time around, in preparing you for this too, and everything we've done up to this point is to teach you to stay free from victimization in any case. Adjust and adapt.
Yep.
And so when you're doing this with the protocol and you're losing, and it's clear to you at this point, we're not weighing, you're not monitoring or body checking, although you can tell, right? It's obvious to you. We can't make you blind to it. And in fact, being able to tell that the body's changing to me is, and how you respond to it gives me so much information, right? How someone responds to how the body is changing on the protocol gives a ton of even just the curiosity about your weight. Do you have any curiosity about it?
No.
See, I find too that curiosity is like you're still linking that it's like, oh, there's a love affair going on between your dieting, which is the restriction, and your expectations physically. The key here is if you remove all expectation, let me rephrase that. If you remove any idea that you're going to be restricting in any form when this is over for the reason of body image. So what we've done is you are going back to the freedom of eating when this is over. That's not negotiable anymore. You're going back to bread. You are going back to dairy. You're going to go back to all the fruits, vegetables, and meats, and all of the variety that we have in our culture when this is over.
Yep.
Within the boundaries of eating to hunger, right? That free eating that you lived in and you really got to know, right? That is not negotiable anymore, is it?
No.
Because of that, does it even make sense for you to latch on to any of the physical results of this protocol?
No.
Mm-mm. Which provides you total functionality, right? Your eating is completely separate, even on this protocol, even under literal deprivation. Because you've positioned your mind to feel relative abundance, you no longer have the entitled, you don't feel deserved of some reward.
Right.
What is the reward then?
Freedom.
Freedom from that whole crazy train. Even
Yeah,
under
absolutely.
food restriction. So what this is essentially doing is it's basically giving you a witness to the power you can have over the mammal brain. If you are willing to, it's a willing surrendering versus I will negotiate. I will temporarily remove my food because I want this reward. So the center of that is me. This is about me.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Where we prepared you for this round to really make this about, this is for my body. I don't even know what it's going to do. I'm willingly surrendering this to the body.
Yeah.
I have no, it's kind of like we talked about the kidney transplant. If you had to do this protocol for someone, you would do it in love, and you wouldn't expect to be paid in return. You wouldn't expect gifts in return. You don't expect anything in return because you are doing this out of love, out of sacrifice for love, right? And this is the first time, would you agree, that you are literally sacrificing food and maintaining relative abundance because you love the body you're in, and you don't expect, you love it even if it gains it all back.
Yep.
Does that really capture, would you say, this whole process now? The willingness to sacrifice for the love of the body, not the love of it needs to be healthy. I love it so it should be thinner. It's really just, I love this body, whether it is thinner, whether it's fatter, whether I sacrifice my freedom of food. I will let it do what it's doing. Right? And in the end, if this protocol provides this body a platform to heal, that's not my business. That's the body's business. Right. So we shouldn't even have any expectations around, is it going to fix the thyroid? Is it going to, help recover the adrenals? We don't know. And nor are we going to sit here and demand or have that expectation so that you can be rewarded for the sacrifice you're making. Right?
Right.
It's a very different feeling as a willing surrender, knowing that in the end, you're going to go back to eating biologically with hunger and giving yourself total freedom of choice. And the body will then accommodate to that. And if it means that you regain all the weight, not because you're binging, not because you're entitled to food, not because you're a victim and you're over consuming, right? It's allowing the body to run the show of itself.
Exactly.
And it's none of your business. It's none of your business. So the goal here is that it's none of your business, even if you're eating less food. It's none of your business. It's none of your business at all when this is over. It's none of your business when you travel and feel bloated. It's none of your business when you go through menopause. It's none of your business, right? Because that allows you freedom to focus your soul and heart on something else. You trust and give the body the freedom to do what it is evolved to do over millions of years, right? We did not evolve to create a mental capacity to manage the functions of the bodies and the cells and the organs. And that's not our job, right? The body's been evolved to do that without our awareness. Other than, I gotta go pee. Oh, I'm really tired. I need to go to sleep. I'm hungry, right? Those are conscious things that the body says, this is what I want you to do it. And then when you do it, it gives you reward, right? So you don't have to, it's really none of your business, and you're giving yourself the freedom to never again manage it. The only way you're getting the freedom from managing this is because you are no longer managing what you expect from this body. You're giving it free reign to do what the hell it wants.
And that's what makes the protocol this time easier too, is I'm not looking at the scale every day and saying, oh my God, I better do an apple day because the scale didn't move. And
right. Isn't that just amazing?
Knowing that when I'm done, there'll be no steak days. And I mean, I'm just
No
just
stress.
listening to the body. And are you there?
Yeah, I said there's no stress.
Okay.
Right? What you're describing with those apple days and steak days is the stress of having to micromanage what's going on with your body. Oh my God, and all that energy and focus on what's going on with the body. That is incredible amounts of energy going towards managing that. And that is been normalized in the diet industry. Like, we expect, if you don't focus and fixate on your weight, that's what's making you fat, right? It's been normalized as if we expect people to do that after they lose weight.
Right.
Think about that for a second. Should we expect someone to have to devote over 50 to maybe 80% of their mental energy towards fixating on what's happening with their body and how do we respond to that? Right.
Yeah.
It's like ping pong.
So much.
Weight, diet, and then the weight's getting bigger and the diet becomes more claustrophobic. The pressure, the stress, and then you get anxiety around food, and then all of a sudden you're like, screw it. I just want some freedom from this strain and pressure, and that's when the food consumption goes up, right? That's what you're describing when you're saying, I don't have to do a steak day or an apple day. That is like suffocating amounts of work.
Yes.
Which is another reason why I believe the HCG done as a diet is actually extremely dangerous.
Yeah, and I see that now.
Yeah, so in this approach, this is a hormonal protocol, and you are now being a great candidate because you're not emotionally engaged in it, as if we're proving your worth, as if this protocol is going to improve your marriage, as if this protocol is going to help you develop that level of superiority that you want when you go out in public for people to go, look at her. You're not using it with that incredible degree of bias. It's now a protocol. It is now a medical protocol instead of a psychological strain.
Yep.
Even though, again, you go and you look at this idea of the hierarchies of need, your pyramid is essentially just smaller, right? Because your amount of food it doesn't change the safety in your environment. And because you're not using food to mitigate your issues anymore. You know, you don't have the shame and you don't have the same dysfunction around dieting the way you did before, which is like flipping that triangle upside down. Makes sense where the food at the bottom is small and you're trying to compensate for your pack needs at the top. Did I just confuse you?
Right.
Where, the survival triangle is typically the large base is food, right?
Yep.
And you go up. Well, when you're on a diet, and you're doing it selfishly, that the body needs to perform for me because I'm a victim of the body and I'm a victim to this deprivation and I deserve to lose weight. You're basically flipping the triangle upside down, expecting to have this huge social reward, way bigger than our brains actually need. That's the narcissism. And then threatening food because you deserve this. So you're taking your whole entire evolution and flipping it upside down.
Yep.
So here you are maintaining less than 500 calories. Are you even eating the 500 calorie protocol? The whole thing?
It kind of depends on the day and where my hunger is.
Yeah.
Some days no, other days I'm eating a little more.
Yeah, in general, you could say average out, yeah, you're eating exactly what Dr. Simeon's predicted. Right.
Yeah.
So,
and, when we talked about me doing the protocol and I said, I really don't want to do it this summer because I want to have fun with my adult children at the cabin and cooking out and, having a drink with them. Mm-hmm. And so this last weekend was the first time we did that while I was on the 500 calorie, and it was fine. It was like
we prepared you for it.
I'm worried about because we had so so much fun. There was a couple of extra kids there, and we just sat around and talked and laughed, and it was wonderful. It was just wonderful, and I could just be present and just enjoy every minute of them being there and just being with them.
Mm-hmm. And you didn't feel victimized at all. Poor me,
No.
I can't enjoy this. I'm having to work hard. Look at them. Oh my God, that must taste so good. Strain, stress, victim.
Yeah, and they kept saying, "Why aren't you having a drink?" And I said, "Oh, I just don't want one tonight." And they're like, "Okay." And they
just went on. We prepared you for that. You remember when we were going through just the preparation of this protocol, and I had said to you, it's not, we need to prepare you for, can you feel relative abundance, not when it's easy, but when it's real hard. And we had talked about you being around in that environment multiple times.
Yep.
We had said it's relative abundance when everybody else is having a beer and you're not. It's relative abundance
Yep.
when it's Friday night, you've had a crazy work week, and everybody's meeting at the restaurant. How do you create relative abundance? If it was you were donating a kidney to your daughter, you wouldn't give a shit. You'd be like, it's temporary, no big deal. You would stay completely emotionally separated from the restrictions that it would require for this kidney transplant, right?
Exactly.
So keeping that total separation from, it's about me, right? This is really important for people listening to this. When it's about you, you're playing the victim role and you are deserved and you're going to mess up, right?
Yep.
It's going to come back to bite you. You deserve the weight loss and you also deserve your food. Which one is it?
That reminds me, last night, we got home and I sat down and had a grapefruit Perrier, just grapefruit flavored water.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, some grapefruit vodka would be really good in this.
Mm-hmm.
I really need some. And I was like, okay, what are you feeling a victim about? And, just thinking through that, made me take time to think about it. And I was like, I really don't even want that. I just think I want it.
Well,
and I enjoyed my water.
The process of looking at that, we've been working on off the protocol. So you're taking this ability to go, why am I the victim role? I will never play again, ever. I don't know if I consciously became aware of that when I recovered, but I just remember feeling in any circumstance that I think that victim position leaves you with so much angst and emotional loss, especially because there's a sense of the victimization is punishment. It's being done to me. I'm powerless. That position is really poisonous. You are going to get some type of compensation, which ultimately that cope or compensation is going to have consequences. And it's just a poisonous state of mind that so many people live in. Every single client that comes to me in that position. Because this is that horrible relationship with being victimized because of my body and victimized because I can't eat. And victimized because when I do eat, my body gets fatter than everybody else. I'm such a victim. And you're like, it changes everything in your life. I mean, how are you going to enjoy yourself if you're a victim just with the body? You're a victim with your own body that's providing you life. It's providing you ease of life. Even if your knees hurt because you're overweight.
Yep.
Think of all the life it's providing. Should we just take a knee, the heaviness of your knees, and make life catastrophic when you can walk?
Right.
This is what I'm describing is the position of relative abundance.
Yep.
It's like the ability to realize that the way I perceive things can either pull me out of survival mode or throw me into survival mode.
Exactly.
Survival mode should be very, very specific towards I'm going to really die. Survival situations. Why are we taking abundance? And why are we taking a perfect marriage? And why are we taking a first world environment and creating survival mode out of it? That's a choice.
Right.
I also believe it is something that's taught by the media, because getting you into survival mode, you're more likely to impulsively buy whatever it is.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have your intelligence working so much. When you're in survival mode,
Right.
the oxygen doesn't necessarily go towards the creative space. It's going towards defending yourself, positioning yourself, organizing yourself. That fantasy comes from that survival mode, inflammatory brain. So what we're talking about is this awareness that, oh, it's a choice. As soon as I feel like a victim, your whole brain functions differently. It's actually a terrible place to function. All you're doing when you're a victim is trying to formulate a way to prove yourself, to feel compensated. Everything you're doing is some form of coping and compensation. And no one really thinks that that's the problem. That creates a whole other wave of problems that you become a victim to again. And another wave of problems that you're constantly trying to come out of suffocating as a victim.
And it takes so much energy.
Oh, it does. That's what I mean by that's the poisonous. It's a poisonous place to be in. And you end up with these symptoms of all or nothing, perfectionism, what else? Micromanaging things,
Yeah.
Constantly feeling overwhelmed by reality. The other side of it is that self-deprecation. My life is terrible. It's all an indication that I do suck. I'm a sucky person. No one's gonna like me. All of those are in the same melting pot of shit.
Those first three terms are all terms my husband has told me. I am not. You just stop saying that to me.
Well, and that was your way of just saying it's never going to change, so I'm not going to admit it.
Right.
Deny. Screw you. I'm not changing because this is how I need to function just to feel neutral. And I don't even feel neutral. I feel shitty.
Yep.
So to be able to change your perspective and actually take the foundation of psychology and restrict it, right? The foundation of psyche, of how your brain through evolution prioritizes things. The first thing your brain is evolved to prioritize is making sure you feel safe with food, abundant with food, and to be able to take you and put you in the 500 calorie HCG protocol, and for you to be able to create that abundance. Are you ever going to have food issues again?
No.
Right? Because you're not going to feel victimized when you go into reality ever again. I deserve to have Cheetos in reality. You won't ever become a victim again. Especially if you're capable of reducing food to such a degree and maintaining this relative abundance. It's like, what can't you handle when it comes to food? It becomes a no factor because no matter what's going on, whether you're on a cruise and you paid, everything's all inclusive and it sucks, right? So you spent thousands of dollars on shitty ass food. You're going to have the ability to have relative abundance in that circumstance, because if you become a victim because of that, now what? You see what I mean? Like, legitimate situation there where you've paid for something that sucks. The ability to go, well, money's spent. This is what I have. I got to get over it. Maybe I'll just make a review later to make sure, and what are my standards of eating? And it's all relative. So you learn to just relax into any situation and position yourself to enjoy life. Especially when it's something like, I'm on a cruise. I spent $2,000. The food is That's just as an example. Right?
Yep. Yeah, I think the victim positionality was the hardest thing for me. And once I got past that, that made all the difference.
Well, what it took to get past that, I think, was our main focus was you believe in a fantasy. You're entitled to the fantasy. You're not questioning your fantasy. That is when people think that it's almost like their politics, right? This is the way it should be, and it's non-negotiable. It's dogma.
Yeah.
This is an approach to life, and it is righteous. It's so righteous and amazing that we're not going to question it. So it's dogma. You never questioned your dogma of life expectations.
Yep.
You never questioned what you should expect from people at work. Never questioning that. We had
Right.
talked about that. That all of a sudden,
Yep.
what you used to judge people for so harshly, now you're doing, and now you're realizing, oh, life is so much. Not everybody has this narcissism around superior work environments.
Right.
So no wonder everybody sucked to you. And here you are relaxing around your work environment going, oh my God, I forgot about that meeting because I was with my granddaughter. Shit. So, that is an example. I'm like, yeah, you piece of crap. Isn't work the most important thing? Kind of like people who are exercise zealots. Exercise is like so important. Like you just make it important if you, and to become the superior person around your exercise, and then to expect everybody to just drop everything to work out when they're exhausted, worked a 12-hour shift, have children at home, need to go grocery shopping, 5 loads of laundry everywhere. Which do you prioritize? My body image or your laundry?
Right.
Again, comparing fantasy to reality. And then someone who, let's just say, is in that overwhelmed working environment with laundry and kids and work and shopping and bills and poorness and reality in this country. And then they hold themselves to this grandiose idea that they may have been able to do at one point when they had nothing, no kids,
Right.
living at home or having like a small apartment that they have perfectly clean because they only do one load of laundry a week. And then expecting that from everybody because you're superior. And then you get into reality and the difference between the two. You're not willing to let go of your fantasies, especially the ones you created as an adolescent, teenager / 20-year-old with no experience life, which is probably where it came from. And also your dad, who had the same type of expectation, right?
Yep.
And you never really adapted to reality, even though reality was occurring in your mind, right? Reality is here. You just constantly felt like, and I have to maintain this standard, which you were victimized by, right? Because you were trying to maintain the standard and you had to do a lot more work to maintain the standard. So you were maintaining the standard, but victimized because of all of life that was surrounding you. And then if you weren't maintaining the standard, you were victimized by the fact that you suck and deserve some type of compensation. And everybody else you're a victim now because no one else is helping and they aren't doing their job. And you just end up being a crotchety little bitch. A curmudgeon, right? We all know those people.
I don't know why this popped in my head yesterday, but when my oldest was born, so 20-some years ago, I had a friend that she was a stay-at-home mom. Her husband had a good job. I was working full-time, taking care of a child by myself because my husband was on the road with his job. And she would say, I don't know why you feed your son macaroni and cheese and hot dogs. I would never do that. I make, she'd name off all these homemade things. And I always felt so like I didn't quite measure up.
Inferior?
And I realize now, I never spoke up for myself and said, hey, I'm working a job with a child, with a husband that's not home, and you got all day long to do that shit.
Mm-hmm. And you know what you should say is, wow, you're amazing.
Yeah.
What you learn is not to defend yourself against assholes. You just give it to them.
Oh. Yeah.
Because if you start to defend yourself, what you're doing is sustaining the idea around perfectionism.
And I tried to live up to that perfectionism. I'm not saying it was her fault. I mean, but it was just another layer of feeling like I wasn't doing enough, and I wasn't good enough, and I wasn't. And then you start.
It's not being able
to compensate.
Yeah, you weren't able to see the fantasy as a fantasy.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because she's talking to you as if she was in your situation, she would prioritize those homemade meals, not realizing that that's not realistic under your life circumstances, right? So you're, again, you're seeing it now like, oh, she presented this way out of whack fantasy relative to my reality. That's why you have to be aware of your reality and accept your reality. When you hear and see things that are presented as fantasy, you can compare the two and go, that's unrealistic, rather than, I suck!
Exactly.
This is what we worked on the last 6 months, is being able to recognize, no, that fantasy, that's why I'm like, when it presents, you go, wow, you're amazing. Oh, you should write a book on how to do it.
Yeah.
We should start a group on how to be perfect moms with our home-baked food, because how to do this when you work a full-time job and have 5 loads of laundry to do, and you also have this Vishla that needs to go out for an hour every day, and on top of that, the yard has to be, you know what I mean? That's my life.
Yep.
I've got bills, and I've got a life, and I'm growing my hair out, and it looks terrible.
You should go eat something.
Right? I deserve to go shopping with money I don't have that needs to pay the taxes I don't have. I hate America. I have taxes. Yet I'm pissed at the pothole outside.
Yeah, and now it's the craziness of the diet industry is so blindingly apparent now.
Right? How manipulative, how, like, I was in the car listening to this radio commercial about Lipo-Dissolve. We all want to love our bodies, but don't you have those trouble spots? How do you love your body with a trouble spot? Oh, they're coming to the rescue. Lipo-Dissolve knows my pain about those trouble spots. They care about me. They want to help me get rid of those trouble spots for a few $1,000s. And then you're going to have weird scar tissue and skin tugging, and you're going to look all weird, and they're going to go, oh, we have a laser. We'll help you with that problem that the Lipo-Dissolve left you. Oh my God, it's another trouble spot. It's just not perfect yet.
Yeah.
Because when it's perfect, you're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to feel like you're a valuable person. You'll love your body when that trouble spot is gone. You won't be a victim of your body anymore. You'll love it when it meets the conditions that you have to do to go under surgery. And, again, the problem with this, I don't think it is actually modifying the body so much as it is doing it with the idea that you can't love your body unless it's modified.
Right.
Big difference. Big difference. Yep. Again, the all or nothing around, let's just say, modifying the body, I don't believe in that. I have lots of clients who have gotten rid of layers and layers of skin that has just been, once they kind of get this process and they go through this and they have skin left over, they want to get rid of the skin. Is that superficial? Should they love the excess skin? They could. There's a balance, right, between all of this, But the balance can only come if you're no longer abusive and no longer the victim, because it takes the victimization to become the abuser too, right?
Right.
It's like being able to say, it would be awesome to get rid of these skin folds, but I don't have to. That type of detachment around it, similar to where you're going. Wouldn't it be great if the body could recover from the decades of damage that you did in that dysfunctional relationship between thinness and then foodness and then thinness and foodness and going back and forth in your victim positions, right? That the body has been tortured during this whole process and did everything it could to actually keep you alive. So in this process, you put the body in this environment. It would be great if it could heal, but you know what? I'm not going to demand that it does. It's not about me. This is about whatever the body does. So the expectations truly don't need to be there. And in the end, if the body regains the weight and without the dysfunction of the food, that's the way it's going to be. And you're okay with that ahead of time.
Yeah. When I was mowing yesterday and my feet hurt so bad because of my RA, and I just being able, instead of saying, "Oh, I should go sit down and have some ice cream because my feet hurt so bad," I was able to say, your body's just doing what it does. And
do you feel like the RA is inflamed while you're on this HCG?
It's gotten better.
It's gotten a little better? Good. Yeah, a lot of that has to do with the HCG is inflaming the system substantially. That's why I asked that, because the amount of HCG you're injecting is super inflammatory, which requires to create the balance around it. That's extreme restriction of food and diversity of food. So that's maybe a sign it's actually in balance. It's more balanced. However, you may notice inflammation with weather change is it might be getting worse in certain circumstances because of that HCG, such as a storm is brewing. If you travel, if you fly, change, you'll notice maybe in the plane, in the air at certain times, it causes a lot of stress in the body. The other part would be like if you're still menstruating, the menstrual cycle, you'll notice at certain times your RA feels way worse on the protocol. Just as an observation. Side note.
Okay. Because my feet are worse, but my hands and neck are a little bit better.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just interesting. There's so much research that this HCG protocol could produce if someone would take the risk to do it. It's got to start with, does HCG prevent starvation? That's such an easy study. Read it in Weight Loss Apocalypse, right?
Yep.
Not that hard to prove the difference, but once if that could happen, then they could start studying the psychological response to the HE protocol, noticing that if you approach it as a diet, it's extremely dangerous, right? Versus this is very different.
Yep.
And in the end, you're not going to manipulate anything, which means your likelihood of re-causing the problem is zero. And we also have an evidence, actually, of what's going on with the body. Again, this is what I wrote in Weight Loss Apocalypse. The end result is what you're experiencing. If you were to reread Weight Loss Apocalypse, the idea that I presented, you're now in the position to do it. The problem is the amount of work it took to get you here. That's a book I have to write.
Yeah. And it did take some work to get me here.
Yeah, humility on your part, the surrendering of all of that, working through the fantasy problem, accepting reality, living.
The first day when I was pissed off at you because I wanted you to say, of course you deserve to do the protocol.
It'll help control
your
shitty behavior. You are an exception
to the rule.
Oh, so many people contact me with the idea that I'm going to start around. Robin is going to help me fix my eating issues while I lose weight. And in the end, I will be thinner and I won't have the weight issues. It's like a win-win.
Yep.
It's like, no, you got to take responsibility first for your own crap. You can do the protocol.
That's not always very fun.
No. And the thing is this, I have so many people that are like, well, I'm going to do it anyways. I'm like, okay, that's fine. I think that's important that you make the decision, as long as you give yourself lenience when it's over to repeat history.
Right.
You're fantasizing about a different result, and you want to hire me to aid you to achieve that fantasy. And all I can do is support your decision, give you grace, and hope to God you forgive yourself when you repeat your history again. And don't blame me. Oh, shit. Okay. I've got my next client's calling. Okay, so let's reschedule. What week are you on the protocol? This is your second week, first week? You've done a whole week, right?
Today's day 8.
Awesome.
COPD.
Well, let's just see where you're at in a few weeks. You might be a victim again. We'll see.